pray like mamas when it's your turn up to bed.
Welcome. This is part 2 of a 3-part podcast with country singer and songwriter and dementia advocate Jay Allen, presented to you by Dementia Action Alliance and Maude's Awards. Dementia Action Alliance is committed to helping people living with dementia by enhancing lives, connecting people, and increasing understanding. We are passionate people creating a better society in which to live with dementia through education and involvement. Please visit our website, daanow.org, to view other podcasts, find valuable resources, and find ways to connect with other people living with dementia through our virtual discussion and engagement groups. Maude's Awards is dedicated to the discovery, celebration, and support for individuals and organizations developing innovative programs and practices of care that are enriching the lives of people living with dementia and their care partners. Their 2023 award winners are going to be announced on September 20th, so please visit their website at maudesawards.org. That's MAUDESAWARDS.org. I'm happy today to host this podcast with Marilyn Rakel and Mark Timmons. Welcome.
Thank you, Laurie. This is just such an honor. Really, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Laurie. It's good to be here again.
I'm your host, Laurie Scherer, and I'm so excited today to be able to introduce country singer, songwriter, and dementia advocate Jay Allen. Jay's song Blank Stares has touched many care partners and people living within the dementia community. We hope you realize, Jay, that the amount of encouragement that you have provided for people like myself living with dementia with some of your other songs. For example, No Present Like the Time and War for You. So I'm waiting to talk to you about those songs as well. So Jay, thank you for being here with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Lori. It's good to see you.
Oh, thanks. Well, I have so many questions, and I know we only have 20 minutes, so I want to start with, in so many interviews, you've talked about your songs and your success being God's will. And I know that you have a lot of faith base. I do too. My parents were missionaries in Africa for 17 years. I was my mother's care partner. She passed away from cancer. And my mom and my nanan were just so much like you talk about your mama in No Prayer Like Mama's. I remember my nanan down on her knees going, "Dear Lord Jesus, pray for Laurie." It was just so amazing. In fact, I have her China doll. That and her Bible are two of my favorite possessions in the world. But tell me about your faith and Mama's faith. How has that helped you through your journeys, both with the dementia world and in your success? Because you are quite a rising success.
Oh, thank you, Lori. So we were just in the United Kingdom. I went overseas for the first time, and we played 6 shows over there and did a bunch of interviews. And they had us on BBC, which is the big radio station over there, and asked me a similar question. And for me, it's so easy because I've made the personal decision that I believe that my mother's in heaven and she's in her forever home, and she's still with me. I feel her with me every day. It gives me such a massive sense of strength, and I can't imagine not having it, and how empty and how sad I would feel if I didn't believe that there's a God in heaven that has an ultimate plan for us in our lives, because I've experienced it. Hopefully I'm living proof. That is my goal anyways, that experience this loss, this great loss. And we've all experienced some sort of loss. For me, the loss of a mother, or your partner, anyone that you care deeply about, losing them is considered a great loss. I experienced that, but I'm so proud that when I decided to really, really, truly believe that I have a father that cares enough about me to give me purpose through that loss. That's when all the good stuff has happened for me, you know? So going back to the beginning, my dad, he was co-owner of a restaurant in small town Iowa. And that's how he met my mother. He had hired her and her sister to be waitresses. And my father and my mother fell in love working at this restaurant. Then I happened, and I kind of grew up there. First couple years of my life, instead of having a babysitter, they would wake up at 4 in the morning and bring me into the restaurant, sit me at a stool, give me a coloring book, and all the older guys, gentlemen, would come in and have their cups of coffee and their breakfast and have me laughing my butt off all day long. And there was a couple specifically that came in quite often, and they would, I guess, minister to my parents and always invite them to come to church. And for some reason at the time, I think it was part of their upbringing, they kind of had a bad experience in church. They would always politely decline until this couple, their names were Ron and Lila Fouts. They eventually decided to work on me. And they asked my parents if they'd be willing to allow them to pick me up to take me to Sunday school on Sunday mornings. And they agreed. And I started going to church with Ron and Lila Fouts every Sunday, and then every Sunday night, and then every Wednesday, every week, starting at like age 4. And they became like a second set of parents for me, you know? And I just remember Ron was like a manly man. You know, he worked on a farm, worked at John Deere. He loved wrestling and sports, but at the same time, he was always so intentional and emotional and honest. And he taught me so many lessons, you know, how to work hard, how to love a woman, how to take care of your family. And all of that was centered around his faith, what he believed, and that God had a purpose for him in his life, and the things that he did and the things that he said mattered and had a ripple effect. And because of him and Lila, I grew such a strong understanding that there's something more than me. And so I kind of was raised in the church because of another couple. And there was always a little bit of a sadness that I couldn't convince my parents to go, because every other kid, all my other friends, all their parents and their families were going to church, but why weren't mine? Well, eventually, you know, Ron and Lila were just the type of people they were and how much grace and patience they had. They eventually convinced my parents to come one Sunday morning, and they were hooked. A couple years in, my dad had become a deacon, and my mother was teaching Sunday school, and they were volunteering full time. Suddenly we're all going together, you know, so I have this deep rooted faith and understanding that, you know, sometimes things aren't going to go the way you think they are. But if you really kind of just put your head down and live your life in prayer and try to be good to everyone and kind of follow the path and have patience, eventually beautiful things will happen. So that's why my faith is the way that it is, you know, and why I believe what I believe today, and why I've carried it into my adult life, and why I share that on stage. Even when I do have a beer in my hand, I'm, you know, rocking and rolling on stage. I will be the most honest and the most human I could be, because I've really seen it meet people where they are, like God met me where I was in my darkest time, you know. And a song has come out of it called "No Present Like the Time." I wrote it when I was on NBC's The Voice. The first song I wrote when I came off the show and released, and it really is about that. I learned you know, what are the lessons I took out of loss. And so I always share this on stage. I thought about these things, you know, because when we were on The Voice filming, they trapped us in a hotel room in Burbank, California, right outside of LA for like 2.5 months. I even had to sneak Kylie in a few times, and she had a blonde wig on just to sneak in, come see me. It was really funny. But I had a lot of alone time, and I started thinking about little things that I think we all happen to take for granted. And, you know, I went quite a few years where I had moved away, but I have little sisters, and I was slacking as a big brother. So I thought, how about if little sister calls, or brother, or mom, or dad, or someone you really care about, at the end of the day, you're dead tired. The last thing you want to do is talk to them or hear about what they're going through. Well, how about you just pick up the phone? Because you might not get tomorrow. What if your dad or your best friend or someone, you know, you've trusted everything with? What if they burn you, stab you in the back? What if you just give them a second or a third chance and learn how to forgive them? Uh, what if someone invites you to come on a podcast like this and talk about, you know, things that really matter? How about you just say yes and find time, you know? So that's kind of how I've, you know, lived my life. It really is instilled in faith. I've seen it trickle into my marriage. Kylie is, you know, really good at, even when we're dead tired sometimes. We don't get a lot of time together anymore because you know, Kylie is a touring artist as well. But when we are together and, you know, we finally get into bed together, she's like, "Can you pray for us?" You know, and I've seen those prayers that we have late at night, you know, when we're exhausted, to wake up the next morning, even the next day, we see like prayers answered, you know. So anyone could try to convince me otherwise, but I wouldn't believe them, and I'll continue on the path that I've been on, that there is an ultimate maker, a creator that has a design for all of us, and it's so much bigger than us, and it's truly beautiful.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear you talk about that, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us. I know for me, God has helped me through a lot of my dementia journey. You know, dementia is like a roller coaster. We have really good days like today, and I just say, God, thank you for today.
Mhm.
And then we have days that aren't so good. And I might, one night I took off and went down the street and got lost, and my husband looked for me for an hour. And, you know,
Oh,
I have those bad days. I have those bad moments, but I also have the good ones. I want to talk to you about a couple of your other songs. First, I know you wrote this during COVID, but War for You,
mm.
that is such a touching song for those of us living with dementia. And I know that's not why you wrote it, but it is. If you're broken, feeling weary, so tired from the fight, there's a lot of times we're really tired of this fight. Tired, if your world is slowly sinking, so hard to see the light. If you can't find the strength to go on another day and your back's against the wall.
Mm.
I mean, I think for so many of us with dementia, that resonates with us.
Mm.
It's, you know, that's how we feel often. So I know that hasn't had all the hits that some of your others have, but very special song. Um, and of course, No Prayer Like Mama's. That's just, I'm so glad you wrote that one. Um, when I hear the song Till the Storm Passes By, I have to think of Nanan. It's just Nanan had that playing all the time. Are there any songs that you hear, whether you wrote them or somebody else wrote them, that you think of your mom? It's just, that's mom.
You know, so I don't share this with a lot of people. Kylie knows it. My close friends know this, but I have to find time to go to the gym. You know, I just have to get kind of like mental clarity and sweat it out and get a little pump on. And you'll notice that I have headphones on most of the time. And I know a lot of the guys and my buddies are listening to like pump me up music, like rock and roll and rap and whatnot. Well, I'm listening to worship music. Um, you know, it's a time where I am fully present. It's a time of worship for me. It's a time where I feel close to my mother. You know, when I'm hearing songs of worship, and when I take the time to be really spiritually engaged, that's when I have this. It's like an overwhelming sense that she's okay, you know, and that she's actually not gone. You know, she's even more a part of me and with me than she was when she was here on Earth. You know, so it's really those times. And, you know, anytime I'm alone, when I listen to country music now, or even like rock and roll, it's more a time of like studying for me. But when I listen to worship music, it's a time to be fully just engaged and present, and have that time of connectivity with God and my mother. You know, so I don't know if that answers your question.
That's awesome. Thank you. And you know what, Jay, you talked a little bit earlier in our first podcast, and you've talked in many of your interviews about how your advocacy has really helped you to find a purpose. Well, finding purpose is so important for people living with dementia. If you don't have a purpose, why get out of bed? Even if the best you can do is button your shirt. We need people to encourage our abilities rather than focus on our inabilities. Purpose is important. Tell me about what purpose have you found out of your I'm sorry, from your advocacy. What purpose have you found within yourself, and how do you want to bloom that?
Yeah, so like growing up, going to a physical place of worship, a church building, and like, listening to and looking to, watching, pastors get on a pulpit and they speak words of life into people. They pray over people. They kind of lead this congregation. I learned so much and I was so inspired. But also there was always a big part of me, and I ended up working in several churches as a young adult. Something really, really inspired. Like I always felt like, I might become someone like that, but I felt like, I'm not saying anyone that's a pastor or a priest or, a preacher is in the wrong, but for me, I felt like it was going to be different. Like I was going to be able to speak words of life into people, but be more of a human, I guess, not polished. I'm covered in tattoos, head to toe. Like I said, I will have a beer in my hand most of the time. I will be in these clubs, but I get to bring a light and a realness to people in a dark place.
Wow.
And that has become my purpose. I've had grown men with big beards, veterans, old men, young men, come up to me with tears in their eyes and lay their head on my shoulder and tell me everything they're going through because they know that I'll listen.
Wow.
And they know that I'm not going to BS them. And for me, that's become my role. And it's not an easy role to play, but I take a lot of pride in that, and that is a purpose. So I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is make my bed. I'll go to the gym if I can, look presentable and just, button myself up and be prepared to give my all that day, no matter what that is, so it is your purpose in life. Once you recognize it, is everything. It is the fiber to your being, and you better take a hold of it and run with it because it's all you got.
Well, thank you for sharing that. A lot of people living with dementia have found a purpose after their diagnosis. I know of a number of people who never did any art, and suddenly they're painting like crazy, and other people writing poetry. I started my own blog. It's Dementia Days, DAZE.com. You talked about sharing your darkest moments, and I'm glad you do that. It's one of the things we try to do at DAA is share your darker times as well as the living and the purpose, because we can still live well with dementia. And so I do appreciate you sharing the dark times and the good times. That's important to us. Well, Jay, I want to thank you for spending this time with us today and for your heartfelt honesty. Not everybody wants to talk about their spirituality, and I'm glad that you were free to do that. Your song "Present Like the Time," I'll tell you, that's another one that really resonates with people living with dementia, because we live often day by day. Mm-hmm. So keep it up, keep writing those songs, and thank you, because you've been a huge encouragement to not only care partners, but many of us living the journey now.
It's kind of you to say, Lori, and I must say I'm very impressed by you, because I know you're going through a lot, but to take what you're going through and to use it to help others, that is beyond impressive and beyond selfless. So keep up the great work.
Thank you. And from Dementia Action Alliance and Maude's Award, we thank you for being here today. And we look forward to number 3, podcast 3 with Jay Allen, coming up shortly. DAA is a nonprofit 501c3 corporation. If you would like to help us continue this and other programs to support people living with dementia, you can make a donation through our website, daanow.org. Thank you.
And she knows it's only Little League, but she knows you want it bad. And when you get a little older, and you're out a little late, she'll bend God's ear all night long till you get back home safe. All those hallelujah amens, crying on her knees, saying grace at dinner time and telling God her